Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Prudence Zhu, founder of Enso Financial and author of A Couple's Guide to Money, Grow Closer, Dream Bigger, and Thrive Together. We'll talk about how couples can turn money from a source of stress into a tool of connection, trust, and shared dreams. Prudence, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here again.
Hi, Tony. Happy to be back.
Yeah, so let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about your origin story. How did your own journey lead you to this place of helping couples find financial harmony, especially those who have different cultures and backgrounds?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in rural China, in the center of the country, and I went to school in Beijing, and then I started my career in private equity. I actually worked in West Africa for 2 years, where I decided it's not the life-work balance that I wanted. And then I came to the US for my MBA. That's where I met my husband. So he's born and raised on the West Coast, Portland, Oregon. And there you can already see like there's a different background there. And after I graduated from my MBA, I worked in Chicago in corporate finance for a few, almost like 8 years, where like I achieved my financial freedom through saving, making money, and investing. In 2021, that's when I achieved my, financial freedom goal. I realized that I should do something more meaningful with my life and with my time instead of just clocking in day and out and, being almost like a zombie, not motivated, right? So that's when I started exploring what my next phase would be. It actually took me almost 2 years to finally quit my corporate job and then become independent and start my own business. So now I have Baoba USA, which is a financial coaching and tax planning company, and Enso Financial, which is a fee-only financial planning company, providing comprehensive financial planning to families and small business owners. And this year, the big effort for me is to write this book, the
There we go. Awesome.
Couple's Guide to Money. And it's really a combination of my expertise, my personal story, and the story from my clients. Because throughout my personal journey as well as serving my clients, I realized money is not a boring practical matter. It's deeply intertwined with our values, our history, our, beliefs, and it actually matters when we talk about it and put it out, in the open and come to a understanding and take action to achieve the dream that we really want. So that's why it's a long story, but that's the full story.
Well, that's awesome. And for people watching and listening, Prudence and I had a episode a couple years ago where we talked more about her journey. So if you're familiar with her journey, I'll link to her the earlier episode so you can check that out. I think that your book is I've had the privilege of being an early reader for it.
Thank
It's
you.
fantastic, and I really love, uh, how you have the case studies and have exercises for couples to do because one of the leading causes of divorce is money, and at least arguments. Couples argue about money, so that solving this one issue can really lead to maybe not marital harmony, but at least kind of smooth out the money disagreements. I think this is a fantastic thing to address. And as you point out, is that everybody comes into it, maybe not as radically different as you and your husband did, but everybody comes into it differently.
Hmm.
So it's great that you're addressing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, like the money conflict is real, and I believe it's both a symptom and a solution. It's a symptom, like it's a symptom because when couples fight about money, it's not really about the dollars and cents. It's really about the underlying beliefs and expectations. So when they fight about money, it's probably meaning they have a lot of miscommunication and different expectations elsewhere. But that's why I think we should, face the challenge, without avoiding it. And actually, there is a solution to, reunite on, love and fear, and then envision your best life together and take small actions that leads to lasting change. And that's the whole concept of the book. And I like to say, like, when love is combined with money, that is a superpower.
I love that. Love is combined with money. It's a superpower. Well, and I think, that as you point out, is money is just part of it because money in and of itself really doesn't have any meaning. It's the meaning that we put into it. So when we are arguing about money, it's about a bigger issue is like, okay, do you think that's important? I don't think that's important. As I talk in my book about having a family financial meeting where you just kind of talk about your goals and what you want to achieve, because that's really, to me, that's a big part where some of the arguments come from is because one spouse is thinking, okay, well, I want to go on a really fancy vacation. And the other spouse is thinking, well, I really want to put aside as much money as possible. And it's like, okay, well, how do you reconcile those two goals?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
love that. So that's a case in point. Like in my book, I really like, taking a step back, really, like what's the value behind you wanting to save? Is it for, security? Is it for safeguarding the family? Is it for, a bigger buffer so that we can actually take a career break or start your dream business or retire early and travel the world? And what's on the other side, what's behind that taking a family vacation? Is it quality time? Is it spending time with loved ones? Or like, is there other alternatives we can achieve that goal without spending so much money, right? That's why in my first two chapters, it's all about the heart. We go back to the love that unites us, and we face the fear that is actually unspoken, but holding us back.
that's awesome. And, I think about this, and, this is something, my spouse and I don't always see eye to eye. I know, surprise, you know,
That's very
on
common.
money. And, and part of it is, I'm very conservative when it comes to my money. So I'm looking at a retirement projection and what are our odds of, running the Monte Carlo analysis, like, and she's more like, okay, well, I'm seeing my friends go on these vacations. And so, it becomes a conversation. Well, how do we reconcile, my conservatism when it comes to money and my fear of running out of money in retirement, especially for her because she's got longevity in her family. So
Hmm.
it's like, reconciling those two into a cohesive plan that takes care of all the needs.
Yeah, first of all, like I would celebrate you because that conservatism or vigilance is a protecting factor for your overall family financial well-being. And I also want to celebrate your wife because the quality time and the moments together, it's what everybody wants at the end of the day, especially, when you, well, we say like in retirement, that's the go-go years, slow-go years, and no-go years. In no-go years, especially, those are the only things that you can hold on to. So I would celebrate both of you. You're doing amazing job, like holding two sides of the coin together as a one, as a unity. So I would say like keep doing it and but just more like communication and creatively thinking what are the ways to combine and honor both values.
I love that is that you want to honor both values in the relationship and and even you have to bring your kids into the conversation is because your kids are like, well, I want to go to Disneyland every year or whatever, their thought process is. So, I think it's a good opportunity to help your kids learn some financial literacy because they have to learn about like, okay, well, how do we balance this? Because we can't afford to buy you a new PlayStation and a new Xbox and a new, you
Yeah.
know,
So here,
we
like, sorry. Yeah, so I'm just
no,
too
go for it.
excited because one special thing about this book is that I also incorporated a lot of illustrations that's kind of, self-help, kind of simple and powerful illustrations. And the last one is exactly addressing that. It's like people have different needs at different levels, the five different levels, right? And we have possessions as well as external resources to meet all those needs. And the fact is that at the bottom, when you are scared for your survival and security, it is true we need more personal possessions. But the higher you go, the less possession you need. But you have to mobilize and leverage all the other external and outside resources in order to meet your needs. So what I see in financial planning world is that people either get trapped in that limited mentality, thinking, "Oh, I need all those resources, and that's 100% of my possession, and I need to accumulate so that I can meet all my needs." But the reality is that you don't need much, especially the higher you go. So with kids, I try to live with that abundant mentality. So for my kids, one is 8, one is 4, they both have their fund money account, which is invested in diversified index fund, and they see it grow year over year. One is like about 4 or 5 thousand, and the other is 4,000. It's all their Christmas money and Chinese New Year money. And now they are like, oh, okay. Whenever they have the money, they're just like, oh, put it in my investment, put it in my bank. So there you go. It's like starting grow that mentality. Okay, there are so many ways to get what you want and focus on what you have, but not limited to that.
That's so funny. Sorry, I'm smiling is my wife is Chinese. And so my son, especially when he was younger, loved Chinese New Year and getting, all his lace, it's just like, but it was the same thing. I'm like, well, you can take a portion of your lacy and, go to Target or whatever. And then the rest of it goes into an investment account that you
Mhm.
get to manage, with, of course, some input from me. But, it's an interesting way, as you point out, is, different cultures, kids do get money at different points in their lives. So, put it aside, put a portion aside, let the kid manage some of the money on their own. And yeah, they're going to spend on things where you're like, what are you doing? But, it's also partially their money and they have to learn that, to make their own spending decisions. So that's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
important.
yeah, absolutely.
So, in a couple got in your book, A Couple's Guide to Money, what is one simple tool or conversation starter couples can use right away to improve their money talks?
Yeah, so I want to say two. The first one, so at the end of each chapter, I have like a series of exercise. And the first exercise to start with on chapter one about love is the foundation. Is actually a synchronized breathing exercise. So it's like 2 minutes, you and your partner just like sit there and breathe in, breathe out, hold at the same time. It's actually a really funny story, but uh, I mean, a very funny exercise, but it is a great way to get connected in a very short period of time. Because for me, we need to connect on the emotional level before we can tackle the concrete and practical differences, right? We need to come back to the bond, the why we are sitting here together, like why between couples, like they're in that relationship, which that's love, right? They need to come back to that common ground in order to be okay and accept all the other things before they can start talking about money.
Yeah, well, I love that. And, and that's a theme with almost all of my guests is that you have to talk about the mindset, the emotions, and all those things before you really get into the tactical, because that's the important thing. And that's, you know, counter the way the financial services industry has historically worked is it's always been product first, goals, needs, values, emotions, and everything second. And I know I ran into that as an insurance consultant is, clients would have make to me, very strange decisions with their money where, I'm a numbers person, so I could say, yeah, numbers wise, this is the right way to proceed. But that would seldom come into the conversation is because they put everything else into it. And I think what you're saying is so important for people to understand is if you're trying to have these money conversations, yeah, and you said it earlier, it's not about the money.
Hmm.
It's about everything else. And the money is just like sort of there as what you think you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a language. But at the end of the day, we have to come to the common ground in order to go forward together, right? So we need to align on the root values of family, of dreams, of mutual respect, of open communication in order to move forward.
I love that. That is awesome. So, you've obviously met with so many couples and everything. Can you share a moment when you saw a couple's relationship and financial outlook transform because they changed how they talked about money?
Yeah, absolutely. So throughout this book, there was a example of a couple. They became my client like a couple years ago, and they are both business owners. And when they came to me, the husband was really, really stressed out about money because at that point they had 200,000 business loan just coming out of COVID, and then the wife had 40,000. Did I say that right? 200,000 and 40,000
Yeah.
in credit card
Yeah.
loan, because she was helping out her dad with long-term care. So they were both very stressed. And the wife had big dreams and taking care of the family, taking care of the loved ones. But obviously they had a cash flow problem and they were worried about their future security. And the wife didn't want to be like seeing how burdened she is with her dad's medical bills. She doesn't want to be a burden down the road for her daughter, right? So it's a lot of motivation to change things around. So I did their financial plan, came up with several strategies to turn around their cash flow problem. And it was more work for them to change their habit of communicating, tracking their spending, and find out more ways to bring in income as well as meet regularly to go over their goals and their progress. So now they're like in a much better position. First of all, emotionally, now they have like a full picture and they have a plan, and they've already seen how the progress is happening in real time. And also, knock on wood, the stock market has been performing well, so their retirement accounts has been like performing well as well. And more importantly, they changed their behavior and their communication around money. Before it was a source of stress and conflict or avoiding communication. Now it's a reason for them to talk and align on their actions and goals. So it's beautiful. I'm very fortunate to be in this journey with them.
Well, that's an awesome story, and it brings up something that's coming up, at least in a lot of conversations that I hear, is this caregiving component. And eh, that there's this whole generation where we're also potentially helping out our parents. We're raising our kids. We're trying to save for our own retirement, financial independence. And then at the same time, is there's where we want to help our parents who may not have a long-term care insurance plan or other assets put aside for long-term care, or, in the case of women, they're just doing unpaid caregiving,
Yep.
which impacts
Their
their
career
earnings and
and
everything
their
else.
right, exactly. Their career, their well-being, their even at the end of it, like their self-worth, their feelings and all that. It's an entire thing. I don't have a full grasp of it, but helping my parents like in the past 2, 3 years about their mental health and their happiness, I've realized, okay, it's another layer of complexity, especially when you're talking about different cultures, because in my book I mentioned there um, our relationship to money is typically like three types: individual centered or small family centered. Like it's about you and your spouse and your kids, right? Or multi-generational and bigger, more extended family oriented, where you are expected to help out up and down and extended family and all that. So for that, it's really important to, first of all, open communicating the expectations and with the your parents and with your spouse, because you're in it together, right? And having the clear expectation and having, I want to say boundary, but that's overused word, but having a clear idea of how much you can support so that you are sustainable and not like depleting yourself, both in terms of finance and energy and emotions.
Yeah, well, I love that. Is I think, it gets back to the whole thing about put your airbag on first, or
Mhm.
your oxygen mask before you take care of everybody else. Is because if you're not financially stable yourself, you're really not doing anybody else any favors, and then that's going to lead to huge conflict as well with your partner, because if you're not seeing eye to eye, or at least your partner doesn't understand why it's important to you to care for your family, or why there's a family expectation that's, as you point out, it's cultural.
Mhm.
There are a lot of families where it's like, well, that's just the way it is. The kids take care of the parents. So
Yeah. And I want to say it goes both ways because I've already seen like I also seen like the spouse of more extended family oriented bigger family, I feel like there's a tension to help them out and like stressed out, but in reality, they were not expecting anything. So it could go both ways, right? It's like you are, if you, but the goal, the bottom line is that you need to communicate with the extended family, with the small family, and have alignment on what's going to come, right? That gives you clarity and peace of mind.
yeah, well, it just keeps coming back to communication.
Hmm.
So, Prudence, what is one lesson you hope every reader takes away from A Couple's Guide to Money?
Mm, I want to say like uh there are so many lessons, but most importantly, I want to say like
You can pick
just
more than
take
one if you
right,
like.
exactly. I want to say the tipping point is really take a micro action. Take a small action that changes how your pattern or the a problematic thing that you see reoccurring in your past, and change that narrative, change that experience, and change your action going forward to change the whole picture. And in the book, chapter 5, there is a whole flow chart. I call it like I call it 11 question adventure. So it's like a flow chart of 11 questions and answers where you can easily go through and identify where you can take that micro action and change things around and go like make further progress going down.
That's awesome. So that's great. And I think as you talk about it, it's taking those small actions to get started. Is you don't have to do everything all at once, because one, you can't do it, and two, you're not going to stick to it. So that's wonderful advice. So, Prudence, the next section of the show, this to start to wrap up, it's what I call the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. And these are three questions that I ask all of my guests. They're more rapid fire in nature. The first one is, What's one money myth you're trying to break, especially for couples?
Yeah, I want to say money is not just dollars and cents. It's not about money. It's not about the number. It's more importantly about your values and your dreams and how you take action. So start communicating and talking. I want to say it's a love language essentially. Like if you don't want to fight over money, then talk more about money.
Yeah, it comes back to communication, and your book is a great guide for that. So let's get out the time machine for a minute. If you could go back in time, knowing what you know now about money, what's one thing you tell your younger self about money and relationships? Maybe just what would you tell yourself when you first got married?
Yeah, coming back to that possession and outside the resource, right? I wish that I could be more holistic in thinking about where I was, because I was basically blindfolded, just going forward towards my goal on possession, but not really fully exploring all the outside opportunities and resources. Now, coming out on the other end after achieving my goal, I realized that there were so many resources, like the community you're building, the mentors I learned so much from. They they are not part of the money equation. They're part of the network and social power equation where I should have expanded and opened myself to years ago.
Yeah, but we all go through that process where, and I know you know some amazing people like George Kinder and Cheryl Garrett, and so many other people that we know in our networks that are just amazing people to learn from. But that's life as you meet new people, and hopefully you can learn from those people. And so that's all it is. So
Or a good book, right?
we're a good book, yay! So to wrap up, what is your number one tip for changing the way we think and talk about money?
I want to say come back to your emotions, come back to love. If you are very brave, come back to fear. It's when you open up to the vulnerability where deep, meaningful conversations happen. And I want to say, like myself, I had so many conversations that I sit on for years and years, and not like it's only when those conversations actually happen, then a lot more possibility opens up.
Yeah, what's like anything, it's even like that question that you don't want to ask because you're afraid to ask it. It's like but when you ask it, and sometimes, like, I don't know if you found this with your fear, is sometimes when you address it, it's not as bad as you think it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all about emotions, right? It's like when you don't want to talk so personally I don't like to vent and I don't want to blame, but a good way to present how you feel is just to say when you did that it made me feel da 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 and that's truly how I feel. I'm not blaming you, but I just want you to know. And when I
Yeah.
did that with my husband and my mom, so first of all, they need to calm down and be open to listen, right? That's why we do the synchronized breathing and other, love um, exercise in order to come to that open environment and safe environment for you to communicate about something that's more vulnerable. And once they realize how I actually feel, they would also respond with how they actually feel. And that helps me understand. A lot of times it's not an apology, it's just understanding and bonding. There's no wrong or right answer to, the past, especially the past. But at least we can be more understanding and feel supported and safe.
Well, that's awesome. And I think that is so important. So I hope for everybody watching and listening, that's something that will be helpful to you in communications with your loved ones. So, Prudence, where can people learn more about you and your work? And most importantly, where can they pick up their very own copy of A Couple's Guide to Money?
Yeah, so they can go to the website investwithprudence.com and there is a lot of information on how to start your journey or start your plan in order to live the life you want. Or they can follow me on LinkedIn. And the book is also available on Amazon starting September 23rd, and you can also request it from your local bookstore.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Prudence, thanks again for coming back on the show and for sharing your insights.
It's been a pleasure, always.
Yeah, and thank you everyone as always for tuning into this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If you learned something today to change the way you think and talk about money, please be sure to subscribe and to tell a friend. You can also join the Get Ready movement at tonystewart.com to get access to my newsletter, whole toolkit of free financial literacy resources, and more. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.